Okay, I think we still got a few people that are logging in here, but we've got quite a bit to cover here. So um, I'm going to turn this over to Paul. He's going to run the show for you today. This will be recorded. This is something that we're really excited about. I think you're going to see a lot about this. You'll hear a lot about it today, and then you're going to hear a lot about it in the near future. So, Paul, let me just go ahead and turn it over to you, and go ahead and get started.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Dennis. Yeah, let me just get started here. We'll kick it off here with just a quick overview of what TSANet Connect is. So this really is the new solution that's coming out, and I'll share with you the timeline later. But the way I kind of describe it to everyone is that this is really taking everything we've learned over the years from our member web, and then also everything we've kind of learned over the past several years with Case Exchange, and kind of bringing those two things together into a single solution that's really kind of appropriate and tuned for the entire membership. So it's still, kind of the key points that we would stress with a member web, this neutral site where you can find every single member there and initiate a collaboration case with them. And then I'll walk through some of these key bullets on the bottom, right? We spent a lot of time making sure this was a very simple, easy solution for the engineers that are the ones using it. We've made certain that we've integrated in things like the escalation process and other exceptions. And then from an architecture standpoint, it's all developed on a new kind of modern API-first technology that allows us to do a lot more interesting things with integrations that I'll share with you as well. So that's just kind of from a high level. If we go into the caller interface, again, it's designed around this really single use case of getting in here, creating a partner collaboration case. It does have all the integrated workflows and exceptions. It's a fast, simple web app. And it's really, again, the fact that it's designed around that single use case, and you'll see that when I give the little demo, it's intended to let the engineers get in here, log the request, and then they don't really need to go back to this solution to continue the conversation, right? Then the conversation takes place point to point, and I'll share with you kind of some different ways that occurs, but really focused around the single use case of creating the partner collaboration case. If you compare to the previous solutions and just kind of hone in on the usability improvements, specifically looking at what the engineers see, finding the member, a lot of improvements here. There's only a single way to do it. You've got a dynamic search. You also do have a favorites pull down, so that finding the member of the partner is extremely easy. Also, once you do that, it takes you directly to that process form. If you remember on the previous website, it would take you sometimes to a company page, which then you would look at all these different tiles and have to kind of select the right one. Or potentially it could take you to a microsite where then you would have to click on the collaborate tab and then find the partner through there. So this has kind of removed all of that. Every time you do something now, whether it's collaborating with a partner in the open group, just as a premium or basic membership, or you're collaborating with somebody that's in a private custom group, right? Whether that's solution support or a technology partner program, it's all going to work the same way. The engineer won't experience anything different. And then again, everything's kind of integrated as far as exception management, and I'll show you that as well. As far as then creating the collaboration case, big thing here is this simple, consistent form. So in the previous website, and then obviously with Case Exchange, right, we tried to create more consistency about what the engineer would see when they engage in a collaboration. But with any type of free base form, right, where people can design whatever processes they want, it still creates a lot of inconsistency. You'll see here now, every time you do it, you're going to see a form. It's always going to look similar. Yes, there may be some additional fields here or there, but in general, it'll have the same approach to collaborating with any partner. We've also spent some time on making sure we've got clear expectations, and you'll see that in the default email process. But again, we're trying to make sure as part of the process, the engineer sees, oh, here's when I should expect my initial response. And then also we're providing the escalation process right within the emails, so that information being available to the engineer without having to go back to the website if something goes wrong to say, how do I escalate this issue? So everything will be kind of right there for them. So definitely a lot of focuses on making it easy for the engineers. Creating the collaboration case. Again, this gives you a snapshot of what the form looks like. And again, this might be a little bit different for different partners that you collaborate with, but in general, everything's going to look the same way. It will become the new standard inbound process. So all members, as you migrate to this new system, will adopt this method of inbound collaboration. Email workflow will be the default. So that will just be the out of the box how it works. But you can integrate to your CRM system. And I'll share a little bit about that when we talk about integrations, because we've taken a little bit different approach there, and hopefully it's an approach that'll work much better with conversations with your IT teams versus our approach before with Case Exchange. And then number 3, obviously really simplified to focus on creating the collaboration. So I would say that's taken the best of what the member web was, right, which was a very simple way, but then bringing in some of the good parts of Case Exchange with more of a systematic process for that, but then removing the heaviness of the ongoing collaboration occurring through a middleware system like this. So you're creating the collaboration, and then you'll see from the process flow, the actual work in the case is engineer to engineer. They're not going through this system. So I know this looks a little busy. I'll walk through this also as far as kind of what the engineer sees, but it's really this 3-step process. They're going to log into the website, find a member. They're going to see a form. They're going to fill that form out, and then that starts to trigger some things, either some email workflow, which you can see all of that, and I'll kind of go through what those emails look like, or this is where you can integrate to your CRM system. And I'll kind of hold off on the integration discussion for a little bit later. But then you can see the process really ends after we've received the initial response. So that's really where we kind of step out of the way, so to speak, and let the 2 members work the case. And this is whatever communication method is more appropriate. So this could be email, it could be phone call, it could be let's have a WebEx, that could be let's use this Slack channel. So this kind of working the case now is an extremely flexible part of the process that's based on, you know, what the member either requires or what's more appropriate for that case. So kind of removing this is how you must work the case. That needs to be very flexible. And what we found there as well is there's excellent tools that we could never replicate within our system, right? So it's difficult to improve upon, you know, email or some of these tools like Slack, Microsoft Teams, WebEx Teams. You know, they're just much more flexible than we could design there. So if you walk through this, again, you see the form here where there's very simple methods of either searching or using your favorites to find the form. And then you're going to fill out this form. Some information will be pre-populated for you. So all this contact information on the left-hand side will be auto-populated because we know who you are. But you could change that. So for example, say, you know, you wanted to put in your mobile phone instead of your desk phone there, right? So we give you some ability to kind of modify that a bit. Common customer information, and then problem information. You also see here the pull down for the priority, and then the section of the form that will highlight the expectation as far as the initial response. So we have design now based on, you know, your membership level, who you're collaborating with, what the priority is. We've kind of coded that to make sure we give the engineer a very simple, here's what you can expect. Right, so they don't need to know I'm a premium member, I'm collaborating with another premium member, or any of these other details that have been worked out, maybe even within a custom group or solution support. That will all be in plain English for the engineer to understand when can they expect a response. So then after they fill out that form, emails will start going off. The sender will get an email so that they have all the information. You can see now the inclusion of the escalation instructions within here. So again, this would probably be something that's appropriate. They'd want to, put this back into their CRM system. But then the receiver gets an email as well. And again, this could be, instead of an email, it could be an API call to create a case into the system. But we also have some timers that will be going off. So for example, if the receiver does not respond within the appropriate time, we will send them basically a reminder. And at this point, we'll bring in the escalation manager so they know as well that, hey, you've received a request from another partner, you've not responded yet. So this kind of automatically triggers the escalation process. But at some point, the receiver will go in and basically give information about their case. So what their case number is and who the assigned engineer is. And that will basically trigger the final email that goes to the sender. And this is essentially giving them information on, here's our case number, here's how you work with us. And again, here's just an example. So here, this receiver doesn't want you to reply to the email. They give you all the case information, and then they give you a link to some type of a team room, right? But it also could be, here's this response, here's your case number, you can reply to this email. So again, all of this is able to be kind of customized and designed based on the appropriate workflow that the receiver would like to see. Okay, and then the last piece of the puzzle is we are having an integrated feedback, again, based on the timer. We will trigger off a request for feedback, kind of a how is it going? And again, you can see the included escalation instructions. So what we hope to achieve here is today we send out surveys every 30 or 60 days to members that have used the member web. And sometimes we do get feedback such as, my experience collaborating with this member was not good. My issue wasn't resolved, whatever it was. But unfortunately, 30 days after the thing occurs, it's very difficult for us to get in there and kind of help things out, get it back on track. So these will come, we plan to send them out 48 hours after P1 or P2, and then 5 working days after P3. So this will be much more timely to where if something isn't going right, either A, you've got the escalation instructions there to be able to call somebody, or TSANet can get involved. Okay, but that's the high level workflow for the new standard email process. So then moving into the other things that have changed and will require a little bit of thought as we migrate you over to the new system is we've changed the method for logging in. So now with the new system, you will get a login page. So, for example, it'd be like, vmware.tsanet.org or redhat.tsanet.org. So you'll have your own unique landing page. We will co-brand that with your logo for all the open group members. But you'll be able to choose between 2 types of login methods. One is a authentication email method. And this would be appropriate if you've got hundreds or thousands of users and you just want to have very broad-based access to everyone in your organization, right? So here's, kind of you put in your work email address. We make sure it's for the domain that's been set for your company. So some protection there to make sure it's not being spoofed. But then essentially that person is going to get an email with a link that they can click on and it'll auto log them into the site. And that will work good for 30 days. We can adjust that a little bit as well. But then the engineer also could turn that into a permanent account if they choose so, right? And that's as simple as just setting a password. So for the frequent users, that may be an appropriate thing. Or again, if you're an infrequent user or you forget your password, you just come back to the login page and ask for another token. So that's a very kind of simple, easy way to get into the site. We've actually piloted this with CA for about a year, and it's worked quite well. The other method is if you want more control over who has a login. So this could be a place where you say, I really only want my escalation engineers to use this system. I don't want to open it up to my entire support organization. And you can see that screenshot there. It's basically going to give you the ability to log in or request an account. And requesting that account will follow some workflow where you can approve that that request for access. So these are the two options you'll have for login. So then the second piece that I want to just highlight here is the first step of customization. So what I showed you before was, here's the standard form, and email is the standard method of collaboration. But you can modify that. So you can work with us to add custom fields to your form. And generally speaking, we see those happening in these two different areas. So the first is you want some more information in the problem information section. Maybe this is a product line, maybe this is a problem category. Generally speaking, these are things that help you enter a ticket into your system and route it to the correct group. So this more than likely has to do with, you know, how you're organized by departments and product lines and those types of things. But we can add those. Those can also be pull downs, cascade pull downs. There's quite a bit of capability in there. And then the second area of customization is in the common customer information. So again, we know that there's some members that have some very unique requirements. So we need to know the customer account number, or we would like to have a case number opened and put that common customer case there. So you can modify that common customer area to include maybe some unique entitlement requirements you may have to receive a case into your system. So these are kind of two areas that we see customization occurring as well. So then the next area of customization is integration into your systems. And we did a couple things here. And again, this was a lot of work done with the technology committee, which we put together about a year ago to bring in some input from the key members on, you know, what should we build and what's the right approach here, getting all the feedback from the previous systems that we've had. And two things kind of came out pretty clear here. First was everything is now designed on this API first architecture. So it makes it extremely easy for us now to integrate to these other SaaS-based systems, right? So all of these types of systems that you see are all cloud-based solutions. They all have very easy ways to integrate into them. So you kind of see two different maybe system categories that we see here. The first is ticketing systems. So that could be CRM systems, that could be engineering systems, that could be IT systems. So there's quite a few different ticketing systems people use. But in general, if it's a cloud-based system, there's a very simple API to log a case into that. In some cases, they can even take an email and log a case. So we see that as one side of the integration. And then the second grouping that we see is collaboration systems. So that could be Slack, that could be Microsoft Teams, that could be WebEx Teams. I'm sure there's some others out there. But this is the area of, you know, it's a more complicated case, or we're working in solution support, and we would like to exchange large files. We would like to have kind of a workspace to work on this issue. That's where integration can occur on that work stream as well. So that's on the integration side. I'll also highlight here, and this not to get too techy, but we've moved everything over to GitHub, which is really a way that would now allow us to invite others into collaborative development. So for example, if we get a solution support request to design something very specific, and our developers maybe are working on something else, and we say, no, we're not going to be able to get around to that until summer of next year. This gives ability to, you know, either A, for us to bring in other developers from other locations, or even allow our members to get together and say, you know, let's contribute some code or modify our process in this. So again, I think between these two things, there's really nothing we can't do as far as integrating your systems and making it work as a more end-to-end process for you. So that's on the integration side. So then moving into the admin interface, this is the only slide that I have for the admin interface, primarily because it really is going to be much simplified from what you see today. So all admins will see this additional menu item here, and when you expand it, it's going to give you company, users, inbound process, partner groups, and reports. And in all of these areas, then as you click into it, it'll give you extremely clear instructions on what you can do and what you need to contact TSANet for. So it's kind of all laid out for you there. Much easier to onboard new folks, much easier for a new admin to come on here and just deal with their users if they've been asked to do that. But all of this has been redesigned, and there'll be integrated help as well. So you won't have to, you know, click on a help thing to, you know, go and look up what are they talking about with departments, or what are they talking about with this inbound process field. All that will be integrated help with the interface. So that should be much improved. So then moving into the timeline. So when can you expect these? I have two different slides here. One shows the development timeline, and the second shows the member migration timeline. So this is a development timeline. This gives you kind of a good sense here. We've been working very, very hard this year. We do plan to release phase 1 by the end of this year. That will have everything that you just saw on here, with the exception of the admin interface. So we'll manually add people on here. We'll do the admin stuff from the TSANet side, but all the other functionality that you see will work. That standard email process will work. The caller interface that you just saw will work. And then we also do plan to do some work on a solution support concept that includes Slack integration. So that'll be part of phase 1. And then on the bottom, you can see the premium members custom process documents. Whenever we're bringing members on, we're always going to be able to add custom fields, those types of things, do some lightweight integration to allow you to create a case into your system. So that's all part of phase 1. Phase 2, you'll see the introduction of the admin interface. You'll also see the introduction of partner groups. And then we are looking at 2 integrations that we'll take a deeper look at, and that's Salesforce and Zendesk. And when I talk about that integration, it is not just logging a case into the system. Again, that's very straightforward, very simple. So for example, if you have Salesforce, you just use email the case or web the case. Those are native Salesforce APIs that we can easily use. What I'm talking about here is embedding the interface that you saw for searching for a partner and filling out the form, embedding that into those systems. So we'll be taking a look at what it takes to do that. So that's more for outbound collaboration. The inbound stuff, we would be able to do some of that integration in phase 1. And then phase 3, that would be where you see the limited interface. So if you're a limited member, we're going to have a brand new interface there. Again, very simplified, very tuned to what a limited member is able to do. And then also that will introduce a new onboarding process for limited members. So if you're familiar with a technology partner group, there's a ability for a new limited member to come in and kind of self-register and automatically create the accounts and inbound process. That will all be changed and new for April. So that's how the development looks. And then the member migration timeline. And I'll just highlight first this note on the bottom. and that is that we will be coordinating the migration. Certainly, we'll love to hear from you if you want to go sooner, you want to go later, because there is some flexibility. But our intention is to try to get all members over to the new system in the first half of the year. And this is kind of how we'll stage it. The phase 1 members, generally speaking, we're kind of focusing on a few members that were part of that technology committee. Also members of that particular solution support group that I was talking about with the Slack integration. So that's kind of the priority for phase 1. But we'll also open it up for testing and demos. So we'll continue to have these types of things to where if you want to kind of, test it out and get you some experience, there'll be that ability as well. And then as we go into phase 2, and this is happening in February, this is where we'll start to bring on more members. So we'll start to look at which members are in Salesforce, which members are in Zendesk, to see if they're interested in this new integration that we've come up with. And then, of course, if you're on the standard email process, you'd be there as well. And then as we go into phase 3, this is kind of working then on all the rest of the basic and premium members that maybe didn't go in phase 2, and then also start on the limited members. And then also any brand new member that comes on board. So really in April, we would be at the point where, if you haven't kind of reached out to us and said, hey, we'd like to go in phase 2, you'd probably be hearing from us saying, hey, it's time for you to start working on the migration. And last slide here, and we can then open it up to questions. This is just a summary of the actions or the decisions that you as a member would make as you migrate over. But again, this is something that we're not going to expect you to do alone. We would be working very closely with you. So deciding on the login page option, right? So do you want open access or do you want controlled access? That's a key decision. We will look at departments. Some members have some departments. Some members have a lot of departments. Some members have no departments. I think it's a good opportunity to kind of review that and explain to you how departments work in the new system. How can we simplify it? And again, you probably hopefully get a sense that everything we're doing with this new solution is to try to simplify things. So we'd like to simplify things for you as an admin as well. So simplifying your departments is certainly one way to do that. Custom groups, we'll look at all your custom groups, make sure that all those are in place. And then your inbound process form, that's really the key, right? So is a standard form out of the box work good for you, or do you need to add some custom fields? And then how do you want to receive your inbound? Do you want the standard email process, or do you want some type of system integration? So those are really the inbound process decisions that you would have to make. But it's really kind of simple as that. Maybe the last point I'll make before we open up for questions is that the old site and the new site will be communicating through this whole thing. So you don't have to feel like, oh, if I'm staying on the old site, I can't collaborate with anybody on the new site or vice versa. That's not true. You will be able to find all the members no matter which site you're on. So the two sites will be in sync. You'll be able to, if you've been moved to the new site, you'd be able to collaborate with any member that's still left on the old site and vice versa. So, at some point, obviously, we'll ramp down the old site, but you don't have to feel like you're pressured to go really quickly or go with your key partners that are going. Old site can work with the new site. So with that, maybe I'll pause here and see if there's any questions.
So yeah, and I do have the question window open if anybody wants to do that. I also want to mention there were several people that joined in the process of you going through this. So again, this is recorded. We'll send the whole thing to everybody that registered for the call. And if you want to also distribute that, because there's a lot of information here that's going in. There's a couple areas, Paul, I think maybe we ought to address for those. You talked about the logins, and we're obviously what's happening here is we're replacing the group login that existed for some time. And you gave the couple options. What if they've already got an existing login? Is there any action on their part that they need to take care of if they've already got an existing account on the old system?
Yeah, if you've already have an existing account, and this is kind of the details we're working out with the developers, more than likely you have to reset your password, but you won't have to recreate your account and all of that.
Okay, and then secondly, if and you really covered, I think you did a great job of covering this, but when I looked at the people that were registered for the call, we've got people that have been members for 25 years that have got multiple departments like you pointed out, and then we've also got people that haven't even implemented yet. So have you got advice for them? I mean, this kind of ties into your last slide, but things that maybe they should do in preparation for the transfer over to the new site.
Yeah, so I would say if you're in the camp of, hey, we've been around for 25 years, and during that period, we've created a whole bunch of departments and relationships that we don't even know if they're valid anymore, it's probably a good idea to just go in and do a little bit of inventory on what's actually in there, right? Because you'll probably spot things like that product line doesn't even exist anymore, or that department, we sold off years ago. So you'll probably find some of that stuff in there, and having those notes available when we reach out to you and start to discuss the departments will certainly speed things up. And then I would say if you're starting out, again, this is kind of something we're going to emphasize on the new site as well, and that is keep it simple, right? So you can kind of see, if you're implementing yourself on to the old site, keep things simple. Don't create a ton of departments if it's not necessary. Stick to kind of standard, simple kind of email contact process. Don't have a real complicated approach to receiving an inbound case, because you can see kind of where it's going to, right? Fill out this form, press submit, you're going to get an email, or you're going to get a new case in your system. So try to kind of stay with that methodology if you're implementing yourself this year onto the old system.
Very good. And the other thing I would emphasize is something that's gone on for years, right? Remember the call volumes here, right? And that's one of the things that we did in working on the new design of the new system is we've never been dealing with really high call volumes. So, this is kind of the simplified interface to making sure that collaboration can be streamlined and take place. I don't have any other questions. We've actually gone a little bit beyond this. Again, I will we'll get this recording out to everybody. That'll be an email that Stephanie will get out, and join us for more, because as you can tell, there's a lot here, and we've also got a lot of stuff going on within TSANet here over into the end of this year and certainly into next year. We've got a lot going on.